Good morning, my name is Elizabeth Chimwaza and I'm going to be taking you through the tutorial for Applied Communication in Policing A. The subject code is POLD ACP1. This is the examination-based content classes for 2022. Welcome to Applied Communication in Policing, Module 1 in particular. I'm your tutor for Applied Communication and I will mark your assignment as well as the examination for this subject. I wish you all to be hardworking, dedicated and self-driven student in this course. This presentation will cover the examination questions. General guidelines on writing exams will also be explained. I will also take you through the subject overview. Subject overview. This module serves as a firm foundation for other modules. Throughout your career, you will be required to describe events in English in your own words. Grammar refers to the study of or rules for forming words and combining them into sentences. These rules must be applied to enable you to express meaning. Okay, when we look at grammar, I'm sure some of you are wondering why is there grammar in applied communication? Grammar is the foundation, is the base of English. So if you haven't mastered your grammar, you still need to know grammar. So I'm going to explain the simple 9 parts of speech when it comes to English grammar. We have the noun, we have verbs, we have pronouns, we have prepositions, we have conjunctions, adjectives, adverbs, interjections, and prepositions. I think I mentioned them already. We have 9 parts of speech. Okay, now these 9 parts of speech, if you look at each part of speech, for example, a noun and an adjective, they can be correlated. How can they be correlated? Is because we can use an adjective to describe a noun. So when you are writing your sentence, you need to look at each part of speech and find a relationship, find a connection. How is it going to make my sentence better? How is it going to make my meaning more understandable than when I just used a simple sentence? Okay, so when we look at grammar, we also have things like pronouns. Pronouns, they are used to replace nouns so that we avoid repeating the same words over and over and over again. Now, we also have conjunctions. Conjunctions are used when we are combining sentences together. So to combine sentences together, you always combine sentences that have the same or a common idea. Don't just take any sentence for the sake of taking a sentence and then you combine it. When we are talking about grammar, we also have verbs. Verbs and tenses take the biggest component when it comes to grammar. You need to know what is present tense, you need to know what is past tense, present continuous, past continuous, present present perfect and past perfect, and how are they enabling you to convey a message. Because at the end of the day, when we are communicating, we are conveying a message. So find out how these grammar rules, how these grammar components are going to help you when it comes to conveying a message. We are also having punctuation marks. Punctuation marks can be seen as road signs, just as these signs tell you when to slow down or to stop. So punctuation tells you how a line should be read and understood. Always remember that if a punctuation mark is not doing anything useful, it should be avoided. Okay, let me just quickly also give an overview on punctuation marks. Punctuation marks are the glue, if I can say. They are the glue that binds a sentence together. If you let's suppose you meant to use a full stop and you make a mistake and you put a question mark. The meaning of that sentence has totally changed because you have now made it a question when it was supposed to be a statement. So you need to go to each and every punctuation mark, find out how each punctuation mark is supposed to be used, why is it used in a certain way, and what is the function of that punctuation mark in a sentence. And like I said, if a punctuation mark is not doing anything in the sentence, for example, you are writing a sentence and then you decide to put a comma where a comma is not needed, or you decide to put a semicolon where a semicolon is not required, then you should try by all means to avoid such mistakes. Tenses are used to show which events or actions come before the others. Like I said, we look at tenses when we look at verbs. And verbs indicate the time of action. Let me take you through again to tenses. We have present tense, past tense, future tense, present continuous, past continuous, present perfect, and past perfect. And we also have past perfect continuous. So you need to go back again to your basic level English and you go and revise your grammar, go and revise your punctuations, go and revise your tenses. Combining sentences clarifies meanings, group related ideas together, and cancels unnecessary details. Okay, so now I said when we are combining sentences, we can use conjunctions. So each conjunction has a particular purpose. For example, the conjunction and it means you are joining two ideas together. And we also have, for example, because it means you are going to state the reason why the action was done. So if you change the two, you meant to put and then you put because, and where you are supposed to put because, you put and, your sentence will not have any meaning. So meaning your message is not going to be conveyed properly. So you need to know how to combine so that you can clarify the meaning. And you also group related ideas together and also cancelling unnecessary details. This effect comes when you are looking at summaries and also when you are writing your articles, when you're writing your reports, so that you avoid unnecessary details by combining related ideas together. Let's look at the module requirements. The attendance of all contact training opportunities that are organized by IOL is compulsory. Acquire the study guide and all relevant prescribed study material or recommended website information. All assignments must be handed in on time. Students with special circumstances struggling to meet deadline should contact IOL in time. All forms of academic dishonesty, such as cheating and plagiarism, are prohibited. Okay, let's quickly go and look at the point which says all forms of academic dishonesty, such as cheating and prohibited and plagiarism, are prohibited. Okay, when it comes to cheating, it can be you copying one person's assignment, your colleague's assignment, or you go on the internet and you look for a paper that was written already and you make it your own. Plagiarism is taking someone's work and not acknowledging them. So when it comes to writing assignments, because you have time and you can open your study guide, you can browse through the internet, students have a tendency of taking word for word things that are written in the study guide and the information that they are finding on the internet. So this becomes plagiarism because you are making someone's work to be your own work. So to avoid plagiarism is, before you start writing your assignment, look at the question. go through the study guide and find answers. And when you're finding answers, you can find answers on different platforms. You can find it in the study guide, you can find it in the prescribed texts, you can also find them on the internet. So gather your information for that particular question. When you feel like, okay, I have all my information, you go on and you read through the information that you got and you write it in your own words and in your understanding. If you do this, you will not be cheating and you'll be avoiding plagiarism. You are encouraged to manage your study time well and engage in learning circles. Some assignments, you can tell that this person wrote this assignment last minute. Why am I saying so? Because when it's an assignment, there is no reason why you should give me an unanswered question. You had 2-3 months to answer the assignments, and only the last week, that's when you decide, okay, I'm going to start doing my assignment, and you find that, okay, this information, I'm not finding it, let me skip it and then I'll come back to it. But because of time constraints, you will forget to go back to that question and put the answer. So make a study timetable and start by doing your assignments now. Don't avoid and wait for last minute. Engage in learning circles. It does no harm to form groups, to form study groups, so that you can be sharing ideas. The way you understand a question is different from the way another person understands a question. And you've put your ideas together, you will understand. All of you are going to benefit. Now you need to focus on understanding, asking what, why, and how questions before you memorizing. Please avoid memorizing, because memorizing is very dangerous. If you memorize a sentence and you forget one word, it is going to distort and it is going to mess up with your mind. The whole sentence is going to be lost because you only forgot one word. So avoid memorizing, rather read to understand. After you've read and you understood, and then you'll be able to interpret it in your own words and write it like that. Admissions to examination depend upon successful attainment of the required continuous assessment mark. This simply means that if your continuous assessment mark does not go until a certain mark, in this case I think it's 40%, you need to attain 40% in a continuous assessment mark for you to be admitted to write an exam. So you need to push through your assignments, because in the assignments, that's when you can attain more marks. But now if you are plagiarizing and you are not answering some questions in the assignment, you are leaving your assignments to answer it in a hurry when you are not under pressure, it will also jeopardize your marks. You might end up getting low marks and you enter into the exam with a low continuous assessment mark, or if your continuous assessment mark does not allow you, it will be too low for you to go and sit for an exam. It means you have to repeat the module. You will not be able to write the exam. So don't wait until last minute, so that at least you can get marks for the continuous assessment. Let's look at the exit learning outcomes. After studying this module, you'll be able to discuss the significance of organization communication, explain the nature and role of communication used in the policing structure, discuss the various mediums of communication. Subject overview. Unit 1. Unit 1 explain the general and academic introduction to organizational communication. To be able to effectively communicate, one must practice on a daily basis the skills of writing precisely and clearly the message they wish to convey. Okay, now when we are looking at Unit 1, we are basically looking at what is an introduction to organizational communication. Why now in this applied communication, we are not looking at simple communication that we've been doing in English communication A and English communication B. Now, organizational communication. Now, you are in an organization. Communication differs from organization to organization. So you need to have an understanding of what is organizational communication and how organizational communication is carried about. So in an organization, we have different departments. Now, different departments, they have their own types of communication. For example, we have the finance department, and maybe we also have the administration department. Those departments within an organization, they have their own way of communicating. We have their own channels, the types of channels they are going to use when it comes to communicating. Okay, so also in an organization, we have, for example, maybe the CEO, and we also have maybe the general hand. The way a CEO communicates is not the same as the way a general hand is communicating. A CEO will have an authoritative command when they are communicating because they are considered to be management. So when they are communicating in an organization, their points should come across as authoritative because they are clearly giving the instructions. And the general hand, their purpose in the organization is simply to follow instruction and maybe communicate when they, for example, maybe a grievance, or maybe they need to give feedback on the communication that they had been given. So you already see that within an organization, there is also different types of communication. Unit 2 explains the nature and role of communication in an organization. The nature and the roles of communication. Okay, fine. When we talk about the nature of communication within an organization, it's simply how does an organization communicate? What channels are they using to communicate? Okay. Now, it also teaches the learners how to be effective in conveying information to the readers. Okay, so now the nature and the role of communication. What is the purpose of communication? Why do you want to communicate to these particular readers or to your audiences? So I'm going to give you an example of maybe you are going to give a speech to primary learners about crime. The type of information or the level of difficulty of the information that you are going to use in that particular speech, it's going to be simple because of the audiences that you are addressing. But now if you are addressing tertiary students, those ones are a bit advanced in understanding as compared to primary learners. So your information is also going to be detailed. It's also going to be advanced because of the types of readers or the type of audience that you are now addressing. So you need to understand, number one, what is the nature of communication and what is the role of communication. Okay, the role of communication in any organization and in any audience or reader, it simply needs understanding. You simply need to understand. So now for there to be understanding, you need to find the proper channel of conveying this information to the readers or to your audience. Now there comes in Unit 2 where it now explains the various forms and mediums of communication through which an effective and efficient communication can be conveyed in an organization. Okay, if we look at Unit 2, we are looking at the nature and the role of communication. The role is the purpose and the nature of communication. Once we've determined the nature and the role of communication, we are able to now pick the appropriate medium of communication. Okay, so here I gave an example of you are giving a speech. Maybe in your speech you are going to use a presentation. So now the medium of communication that you are going to use to primary learners, obviously it's going to be posters. It's going to be something which is very colorful to capture their attention because they easily lose concentration when things are just black and white. Now this is how the nature and the role of communication will enable you to choose the medium of communication. the end goal for communication is understanding. So you need to explain the various forms and mediums through which an effective and efficient communication can be conveyed in an organization. Okay, so now the forms and mediums that can be used when it comes to communication, we have letters, we have TVs, we have speeches, we have social media, we have TV, we have radio, we have print media. When it comes to media is very vast. We have print media, we have visual media. So you pick the form that you think, okay, for this particular audience, if I use this medium of communication, it's going to give me positive results than if I use this medium of communication. Let's now look at the examination questions. These examination questions are described as a summary for the assignments. They appear on the tutorial letter for 2022. Here follows the questions. Question 1, define the term organization. I've been talking about going through your study guide. This is because all the questions that you're going to get, whether it's an assignment or whether it's an exam, they are derived, we structure the question according to the study guides. So you need to go through the study guide and understand it. Do not go through the study guide for the sake of answering the assignment. Thereby you just open the study guide and then you take information from the study guide and then you answer your question. Understand it because you are also going to use it when you that's where we get the questions we use when we are drafting assignments or examinations. Okay, so you need here, for example, to define the term organization. A student is required to learn and master all definition. It doesn't matter how long or how short the definition is, you need to learn and master all the definition. Explain the basic types of communication. To explain is to describe something and indicate relationship between things, making clear the why, that is the reason, and how. Explain the features. Describe the various approaches, styles used by management in communication. To describe is to provide a detailed feature, is to provide detailed features of an issue or stages of a process in a logical sequence, using numbers and headings and proper sentences. It is not necessarily to discuss the subject by referring to arguments for and against. I'm going to repeat it again. What is to describe? To describe is to provide detailed features of an issue or stage of a process in a logical sequence, using numbers and headings and proper sentences. It is not necessarily to discuss the subject by referring to arguments for and against. Discuss the importance of organizational communication. To discuss is to give a clear description and then argue about features by pointing out positive and negative features, arriving at a conclusion. Okay, so you can already see that there's a difference between describing and there's a difference between discussing. To describe, you are merely stating facts in a logical sequence using numbers and headings and proper sentences. You don't have to discuss the subject by referring to arguments for and against. But now when it comes to discussing, you have now to give a clear description and then you argue about the features by pointing out the positive and the negative features before arriving to a conclusion. Question 2. Discuss the nature of the communication process. Define the nature of the communication and explain. This might require you to explain with the aid of a diagram. I always advise my students that if you see a question that needs you to illustrate, there's no harm in illustrating, because maybe when you gave your explanation in words, you did not really put across your point. But now with the aid of a diagram, whatever you had missed when you were explaining, I'll simply pick it up from the diagram. And a diagram might be very clear as compared to the word, the explanation that you had given on top or below. So don't miss an opportunity of being awarded more marks by simply not wanting to put a diagram, by simply not wanting to put a table, which at the end of the day is benefiting you as a student to get more marks. Explain the values of an effective communication system. Define and explain. So you need to define and explain effective communication, and then describe about the values of effective communication. Understanding internal and external communication, you need to be able to define and explain internal and external communication. You also need to know the difference between the two. Question 3. Discuss the forms of communication. Explain the various forms and mediums through which an effective and efficient communication can be conveyed in an organization. Okay, so let's quickly go back to question 1. If you remember the subject overview that I gave you, Unit 1, you are simply, let's quickly go back. You are in Unit 1, you are explaining, you are given an introduction to organizational communication. So I might come up with such question where I expect you to define the term organization. I expect you to explain the basic types of communication within an organization. I'm expecting you maybe to describe the various approaches or styles used by management in different communication. All these questions, I am going to get them from Unit 1. Now, if you look at question 2, we are now discussing the nature of the communication process. If you look at Unit 2, we said explain the nature and the roles of communication. So all the questions, Unit 3 says explain the various forms and mediums of communication through which an effective and efficient communication can be conveyed in an organization. That's why questions that can be derived in Unit 3 to be at question 3. For example, discuss the forms of communication, explain the various forms and media through which an effective communication can be communicated. Okay, now other types of questions that I expected, obviously you are also going to get you are also going to be asked to write maybe a letter, you are also going to be asked to write maybe an article, or you are asked to write a memo, or you are asked to write a report. Okay, so when you are going through your module, you are going to be given a structure of a letter, you are going to be given a structure of writing a memo, you are going to be given a structure of writing a notice, writing a speech, or even writing a report. So all the questions are derived from the module. So go through your study guide, understand it, read and understand it, so that you are going to be able to answer all the questions. Whether it's an assignment, whether it's an exam, you will be able to answer the questions. Okay, so when it's a question which comes like this, explain the mediums of communication. The first thing that you need to do in this question is you need to list the mediums of communication. For example, letters, radios, TVs, newspapers, adverts, and social media. And when you are explaining mediums of communication, you also need to give us the advantages and disadvantages of using any type of medium of communication. For example, if you choose letters, what are the advantages and disadvantages of using letters? For example, let me take letters. When in an organization, letters are in forms of emails. Now, an email is effective because if a person is sitting in front, nowadays people have access to emails wherever they are, be it on their laptops, be it on their cell phones. You can access your email, but now the challenge becomes you need to have internet connection for you to be able to access your email. So that becomes a disadvantage, because you might be in a place where you have where you don't have access to internet connections. But nowadays also those places are becoming scarce. A lot of people are having Wi-Fi hotspots, whether it's a business environment, or you are in a coffee shop, you can simply get the Wi-Fi and then you are already connected to the internet. Okay, for example, you want to use newspapers as a medium of communication. What are the advantages and disadvantages of newspapers? Can everyone read? Because if you can't read a newspaper, then if you choose using a newspaper as your medium of communication, meaning you are discriminating, you are not going to include everyone. Your audience is going to be limited, because the illiterate people will not be able to read the newspapers. So that's how you are going to be able, that's how you can answer a certain questions. When you get a question which says explain the medium of communication, look at the types of communication, look at the advantages and disadvantages of using that specific medium of communication. Instructions and information to candidates. What should you do in assignments? Okay, we are looking at when it comes to writing an assignment. Assignments, you get them in advance. You have an opportunity to go through them before you answer the question. So you need to provide sufficient answers, meaning you don't write too little or you don't write too much. Also check the mark allocated to determine the length of your answer. Okay, so a question that has a mark of 1 mark and a question that has a mark of 5 marks cannot have the same length because of the mark allocation. So if you write more information on a question which is going to be awarding you 2 marks, maybe you write 4 or 5 points, only 2 points the points are going to be marked, but because the question is only being awarded 2 points, you only get 2 points despite you writing a lot of facts. So let's look at the mark allocation to determine the length of your answer. Okay, try by all means to use your own words and refer to your own experience. Avoid plagiarism, students. I repeat myself, avoid taking the module, taking the study guide, opening it, looking at the question and looking at the answers from the study guide, and then putting it in your own assignment as if the words in your study guides are on your own words. So what you need to basically do is you need to use your own words and you need to refer to your experiences. So if you are given a question which needs you to put examples, find examples that you have experienced or that you have seen so that you make the answer your own. Make sure you use your statement ideas to make sense of what you intend to say. Don't just write sentences for the sake of sentences. The sentences should make sense, and your sentences or your ideas should make sense of what you intend to say. Good luck with your exams, and also good luck when you're writing your assignment. Please do not avoid to writing assignment under pressure. Start your assignments in time so that you get to finish your assignments. Do not hesitate to contact me should you experience some challenges in your studies. Here are my contact details. My email address is zabe.chim@yahoo.com and my mobile number is 0817-356-991. You can contact me through email anytime, But on the mobile, you have to contact me only during office hours, Monday to Friday, from 9 until 4. That's when you can find me. But with the email, you can send forth your query any time of the day. Once I receive your email, I will quickly respond to it. But if I don't respond to it there and there, it means I'm occupied with something. But when I get to the email, I'll definitely respond to it. I wish you all the best in your studies. Thank you.